silly. Well, how badly do you want the change? How much of your life are you giving away and not using on self-care? And how much do you want to feel better? If jumping up and down when you realize you've been scrolling on it for 2 hours is too weird for you, then maybe self-care is not your priority. And that's okay. But if you want to make time for yourself, if you want to create more enjoyable life, you're going to have to change what you're currently doing. And we all have patterns that we need to break. We all get into routine. It doesn't make you bad or deficient or there's something wrong with you. That is how the primitive human brain works. I could send you a whole bunch of information on the brain and all these books I've been reading and podcasts and all the proof, but just trust me when I say your brain is not that evolved, and you've constantly got to fight against it because the times are changing quicker than the actual hardware. You know what I'm saying? All right. So now, step number 4, you're going to take a break from the interrupting. All right, so you've recognized the pattern you don't like or that you want to change. And you're going to start by making really small, realistic shifts away from that pattern. And you're going to come up with some kind of wacky, zany, crazy tactic to do when you realize that you're engaged in the pattern. And step 4, this next step, is probably the most important step and the least utilized. And this is hardest for my perfectionist and my type A's out there. But I got to tell you, folks, I tell my attorneys to do this all the time. You've got to take a break from it. You have to stop trying to solve the problem that you're working on and walk away. Go do something else. I tell them, go golfing or something. Get out of the office. Get away from the problem. Let your little brain rest, and it will do all the work in your subconscious while you focus on something else. My favorite break from this stuff, like self-development or whatever, is swimming or the batting cages. Because your brain has to be laser focused on the thing that it's doing. And so whatever intellectual thing that you're working on, your physical body takes you out of your head on this thing, this pattern that you're working on. And it gets you redirected. This is so important. I want you to try this even if you don't use any of the other steps today. This works for schoolwork, problems at work, relationship stuff. Get yourself out of the environment that you're trying to solve the problem in and change up what you're doing and take a break from it. Because, again, your brain is working in a different way than you think it is. Your brain will solve this problem in the subconscious, not the habit brain. But if you break your habit brain's pattern in the middle of what you're trying to break, and then you step away and do something else, your subconscious comes up with a quicker way to do it for you without all the work. So last but not least, step 5 is embed, okay? Here's the step where we really get into the self-care part of this pattern interrupt skill. This is where you're going to really supercharge this process. So you found a pattern you'd like to change or get rid of. You set yourself up to be led away from that pattern in slight little realistic changes, but not like completely severed from it. And you start doing some kind of silly physical thing when you notice yourself engaged in that pattern. And then you take a total break from trying to fix it all together. And now you're going to embed the self-care suggestions into the pattern. And here's how you do that. You're going to start adding pleasing smells. So, I don't know, incense, the Scentsy candles, whatever you can use. Sometimes people use those lavender pouch things that you carry around with you, and they've got like lavender and other herbs in them. And when you move them around, they charge the smell, and you can smell them. So you're gonna actually use the senses and add those pleasing smells. You're gonna take the long way. So every time you have to go somewhere, and I mean this, like physically go somewhere. Don't just get on your GPS and find the fastest way there. Make yourself go the long way or a different way. Another way you're going to embed these pattern interrupts is regulate your temperature. I know this sounds bizarre, but trust me, this is a huge part of self-care that a lot of people don't think about. If you're hot, get the AC or the fan on. If you're cold, add a sweater. If you're just right, leave it there. But regulate your temperature and don't go off of what everyone else is saying they need. Whether it's your partner, your kids, your coworkers, whatever, you do what you need to do to regulate your own temperature. In that same vein, the face mist, you could just do regular water with a little spritz bottle. You can get it from the dollar store. Every time you're engaged in the pattern that you want to change, you just spritz a little bit of face mist. You can add some like essential oils in there if you're all savvy on that, but just something that gets that moisture onto your face. Same kind of other examples, clean sheets, cold shower, weighted blanket, use an hour and 15 minutes off rule. I don't know if you know this one, but I've set this up. I do an hour on of the intellectual work, 15 minutes of the BS work, managing the emails, so on. And I do that, and I have 3 different sets to my day. So I'll go over that later in a different podcast, but it's an hour on, 15 off, hour on, 15 off, because you have to, especially if you're in an intellectual job, give your brain a break, not just your 2 15s and a 30. Folks, that doesn't work, especially now when we're in complete overload and hypersensitivity. Hour on, 15 minutes off. A squeeze toy or a doll or Play-Doh, something that you can physically, squeeze with your hand. Rearrange the art that you're staring at or add art if you don't have any in the house or the office or whatever. Play nature sounds. Get into it. I know it's hippie woo-woo, but these are the kind of self-care activities that are going to embed care into your daily routine that don't take a lot of effort. Another one is create the phone coffin. Don't know if you've seen this, but it's a thing going on around Instagram and I've seen it on TikTok. There's like a little coffin, you decorate it, whatever, you put your phone in it, and that's when the phone is dead, like you don't get to use it. Use a pendulum. This is another great way to embed this self-care into your pattern interrupts. If you're having a tough time making a decision, maybe it's a big life decision, maybe it's a tiny decision. You can't decide which color of sneakers to buy, and you can only afford one pair. So on one side, you write black. On the other side, you write red. You hang your pendulum over it. You let it naturally sway, and wherever it sort of lands naturally is what you choose. This is a practice of decision-making that feels a little like chance, but really your body's involved with it because you're holding the pendulum, so your subconscious will make it go to what you really want. And another one is to assess your workstation and overhaul it, declutter it, make sure you have a wrist rest, make sure you're not dealing with glare, change your email signature, whatever you need to do to rearrange your workstation and where you're physically at every day for work. So those are just some ideas, some tips, some tricks on some self-care that you can embed into your life that will help with this pattern interrupt. So I'm going to post this list on the website as I do with all my show notes. I'm going to run through the steps again. There are 5 steps to pattern interrupt. Number 1, you recognize your own patterns. Number 2, you're setting yourself up to be led away from the patterns. Number 3, you do that interrupting, the actual crazy, wacky, jumping jacks, whatever it is. Number 4, you take a break from interrupting your pattern that you're trying to change. And number 5, you're going to embed some self-care into your day. I'm going to run over that list of the self-care that you can embed into your day. Again, these are ways that you can get self-care into your everyday life without a lot of effort. They are add some pleasing smells, take the long way home, regulate your temperature, use a face mist, clean sheets, cold shower, weighted blanket, use the hour on, 15 minutes off method, get a squeeze toy for anxiety, rearrange your art or add art if you don't have any, play some nature sounds, some birds tweeting, whatever, use a pendulum, create a phone coffin. That's the time when your phone is dead and you can just say goodnight. And then assess your workstation, making sure that it's decluttered, you've got a wrist rest, there's no glare. All right, friends, I know that was a very quick overview of pattern interrupt. Believe me, there are master classes on Google. There are certificates you can get and go into deep dive with the counseling over it. It's an incredible habit and skill to develop because it does help you assess whether or not what you're doing on autopilot every day is actually helpful for you. So I hope that this helps you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. That's it for this week. If you have a story you'd like to share and you want to be on the show, email me. It's Chris, Kris, at selfcareissexy.com. Okay, we've got some really great content coming your way, so stay tuned. And remember that self-care is sexy. We're giving you permission to put yourself first.